Yes, yes. So, beta, yesterday I told you about the primary active transport, secondary active transport. In primary active transport, I told you that 3 sodium they are taken from inside, they go out, and 2 potassium from outside they come. Okay, and this is done by utilization of energy when ATP is broken down into ADP plus P with the release of energy, and this energy is used to drive 3 sodium out of the cell and 2 potassium into the cell. Now, shall I make the diagram for you again? Because I don't think that you remember this still. So I'll make the diagram for you. So here, the diagram is like this. This is plasma membrane, like this. This is the extrinsic protein which was shown. Intrinsic protein, not extrinsic protein. This is the intrinsic protein, and with the utilization of energy, because it is active transport, so energy is used. So ATP is used, and this ATP gets broken down into ADP and inorganic phosphate with the release of energy. And this energy which is released, it is used. This energy which is released, it is used to drive out 2 sodium out of the cell. 3 Na is taken out from inside to out. Okay, and it's better to, okay, it's not to cross it. It is done like this, like this. 3 sodium is taken out, and in turn 2 potassium is taken. 2 potassium is taken in. So this energy which is released as a result of hydrolysis of ATP is utilized to send out 3 sodium and to take in 2 potassium. Now, I told you as a result what happened. The concentration of sodium inside, no, sodium is, this is outside, this is inside of the cell. This is outside, this is inside, and this is PM. PM is the plasma. So it is like this. So when sodium is taken out, what happens? The sodium outside the cell increases. See, there is an increase in the sodium concentration. There is an increase in the sodium concentration. There is an increase in the sodium concentration. The sodium has increased so much outside, and inside, obviously, what will happen when it is taken out? The sodium inside will decrease. Now, when the sodium inside decreases and outside it's more, then what happens? The sodium will is, automatically it will start coming in, because the concentration of this has become high outside and inside it is less. So automatically this sodium will start moving in. Here the sodium has started moving in. When sodium moves in, along with sodium, glucose also moves in. Along with sodium, glucose also moves in. So glucose also comes in. So this is along with the sodium, glucose comes in. Now, see, this, the second step which has taken place here, this is a result of first step. That means when first step took place, then only the second step took place. Had this not been done before, this wouldn't have been happened. So For this needs to be there because this took place. That is why this step came into existence. Without this step will not come into existence. So because of this is known as primary active transport. Primary active transport. And this is known as secondary active transport. So one is primary active transport and the second is secondary active transport. Now, besides this, here why this is known as primary active transport? This is known as primary active transport because here ATP is directly consumed. If you see, ATP has been directly consumed. But here, this is the result of this. See, no ATP is consumed here. This is just because of the increase in concentration of sodium outside, the sodium moves in. But here directly the ATP is consumed. That is why it is known as primary active transport. Second one is dependent on the first step. Second, this, whatever is happening here depends on this, what has happened there. Now here, what is responsible for this? This I haven't labeled this particular channel through which this exit and incoming of these ions is taking place. This is known as protein, intrinsic protein. Intrinsic protein. This is intrinsic protein through which the movement of ions is taking place, which acts as a transmembrane channels. Now here, what happens that it has been given another name also. That another name is, this is also known as antiport movement or antiport transport. Okay, or movement. And this is symport. Yesterday I told you why this is known as symport and why that is known as antiport. Yeah, anybody remembers? See, this is one protein which is transferring two substances in two different directions. One is going out, another is coming in. Only one protein. This is one single protein which is transporting the substance into two different directions. That is why we call it antiport transport or antiport movement. Why this is known as antiport movement? One protein, which protein? Tunnel protein or intrinsic protein. You can call it tunnel protein or intrinsic protein. One protein transports two substances. One protein transports two substances in two different directions. And here one protein transports substances in same direction. Here the glucose is also coming in and sodium is also coming in. So the direction is same and the protein is also one, just one intrinsic protein has been used, and see, only in one direction it is coming. So this is symport movement of substances, and above one is antiport. Is it clear? Sodium potassium pump beta, is it clear to you all? Yes. And where it is found, I have already told, membrane of neurons and membrane of muscle fibers. This is found. Is it clear, or anything you want me to repeat? Yes, beta. Anything you want me to repeat?
It's clear, ma'am.
Clear, fine. So I come to another pump, which is I come to another, which is sodium pump. Second phase where active transport takes place is sodium pump, and it is pump. What is this Na pump? Na pump, it is a pump which is found in dendrites. Okay, and the membranes of neurons and muscles. Dendrites. You know what are dendrites? Dendrites are these are the branch structures which are post-synaptic. These are post-synaptic. What do we mean by post-synaptic? Post-synaptic means after synapses. You know synapses. If this is a neuron, this is the tail, and then here again the dendrites. So in these dendrites it is found. This is synapse, and post synapses means after synapses. Post means after synapses. This is synapse where the tail and terminal ends of a neuron meets the dendrites of another neuron. That is synapse. So postsynaptic membranes it is found, and besides postsynaptic membrane, this is also found sodium pump. This is also found in the membranes of neurons and muscles. Also found in membranes of neurons and muscles. Okay, so here just the movement of one substance, one ion takes place, and that is sodium. Only sodium moves. Okay, then another is the third one, potassium pump. Potassium pump. What is this potassium pump? Again, when it is said that potassium pump, that means it helps in the transport of only potassium. It helps in the transport of only sodium. It helps in the transport of only potassium. Only potassium is transported along this pump, and this is membrane of neurons, muscles, membrane of neurons, muscles, and of course one more structure where it is found is if you tell me, if you remember, potassium is used, potassium is very much used in one of the plant structure. If you remember, you can tell me. If you remember, potassium is used for the operating of a particular structure in the plants. What is that structure? For operating a particular structure in plant, potassium is used. If you remember, high concentration of potassium and then low concentration of potassium. It is for operating a particular structure. If anybody remembers, where is this potassium used in plants? For operating a particular structure. When I was telling you diffusion, at that time also I mentioned that. When I was telling you diffusion, at that time also it was mentioned. So can you tell me, if you remember, can you tell me where this potassium is used, potassium ions are used? Yes. It is stomata. Stomata. So what function of stomata? Opening and closing. Opening and closing of stomata. This is useful. Opening and closing of stomata. In the stomata, this is stomata. When potassium is high, water from the subsidiary cells moves in and they swell up. When they swell up, opening is formed here, stomatal opening, and it opens. But when these potassium ion decrease, they go out, and the amount of the concentration of potassium ion decreases inside. Then what happens? The water from inside moves out, and they become flaccid, and the opening is not there. The opening is not there because they are no more turgid. They become flaccid, and the opening is not there. Who's saying this? Write in little bigger font. Why this is not visible? Is it not visible, beta? I'll bring the camera near. Is it okay? Is it okay? So it is opening and closing of stomata where the potassium ions are used. Then we have the calcium pump. Another pump which is here is calcium pump. And what is this calcium pump? Calcium pump is transport of only calcium. Transport of only calcium takes place through this. And where it is found? It is found, calcium is very much required in the contraction of muscles. So contraction of muscles, that means sarcoplasmic reticulum. You must have done contraction of muscles where the sarcoplasmic reticulum you must have studied. So in the sarcoplasmic reticulum, this is seen in sarcoplasmic reticulum, which is found in muscles and helps in the contraction of the muscles. Then also in the presynaptic membrane. This was postsynaptic and now presynaptic membrane. And what is this presynaptic membrane? Presynaptic membrane means the terminal ends. These terminal ends, when one neuron, this is one neuron, when it here, another neuron connects here, okay? Then another neuron like this. So this is presynaptic. That means the membrane of the terminal ends. So it has presynaptic membrane also, it is present. And then now the next where the active transport is seen is exocytosis and the endocytosis. Exocytosis and endocytosis. Where this is seen, where the movement of substance is seen. Now, this is also known as the bulk transport. Exocytosis and endocytosis is also known as bulk transport. Bulk transport. Why this is known as bulk transport? Because a lot of substance is, taken in or given out. At the same time, energy is utilized here. Energy in the form of ATP is utilized. And why this energy is utilized here? This is utilized because plasma membrane's shape changes. When it gives out, then also the shape of the plasma membrane changes. When it brings in something, then also the shape of plasma membrane changes. Because of the structure, because of the change of structure of plasma membrane, this ATP is required. Why it is required? As the structure of plasma membrane changes during the process. As the structure of plasma membrane changes during the process. Fine. Now here, exocytosis, that means something which is given out. Exocytosis is seen in WBCs, macrophages. When a cell throws out the dead bacteria or the debris, okay, so dead cells, dead bacteria or dead microorganisms are thrown out, that this is exocytosis. Endocytosis, when cell takes in something. So endocytosis is when the cell takes in something. It is further of two types: phagocytosis and pinocytosis. I repeat for you, exocytosis means when a cell removes something, any debris, any dead bacteria or microorganisms from its body. It is exo. Exo means bringing out, throwing out. So this is exocytosis. When WBCs, WBCs are meant to kill the bacteria, the microorganisms, the pathogens. Okay, same way macrophages are also used for that. So when they kill the bacteria, the microorganisms, those are thrown from them, from their body. Okay, how it is thrown, that is exocytosis. Endocytosis means when a cell takes in something. So it takes either the solid material or the liquid. So when it takes the solid material, it is phagocytosis. When it takes in the liquid material, it is pinocytosis. That is why phagocytosis is also known as cell eating. When a cell eats something solid, and this is cell drinking. Pinocytosis is cell drinking. When the cell takes in liquid, so cell eating and cell drinking. And how it is done, I'll show you by the diagram. I'll show you by the diagram how it is done. This is a cell. This is the plasma membrane of a cell. Now, if this has to eat something, this is something, a solid material which the cell needs, cell has to eat. So what is done? What changes take place in the plasma membrane? In the plasma membrane, invagination is formed. So there is a change in shape of the plasma membrane because an invagination has been formed, and for this purpose the energy is utilized. I have made it little bigger, so it has to be. Now what happens? This material which the cell needs to eat, it enters here, okay, in this invagination, and finally it becomes the part of the cell. That means this is the plasma membrane and it has become the part of the cell, and slowly it gets assimilated in the cell. And this is cell eating or phagocytosis. This process is phagocytosis. Phagocytosis. How the cell eats. Now, this is one way, or even pinocytosis is done like this, both. So this is a process which shows endocytosis, something when a cell takes in. So a vesicle is formed, and then invagination is formed. This into the invagination, the material which the cell wants to take in, feed on, is taken in, and then it becomes a vesicle. This is a vesicle, and slowly it becomes the part of the cell. So this is one way the cell takes in the substance. Another way is, this is a plasma membrane, and there are some receptors on the